Hello, 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 everybody.
Hi.
It is Emily and Stacey.
Hi.
And you are viewing another episode of Mondays with the Montana Medium. So today we are going to be talking a little bit about boundaries and
Wonderful boundaries.
who are they for? What are they for?
How do you
I
do
do it? And so I'm really excited to dig into this topic
Okay.
because I feel like it's something that we all, whether we are conscious of it or not, we're having to do it or we're not doing it. Right? I mean, there's like,
Right.
it's a lot. There's a lot of that going on for all of us. So, where should we even start? This is a pretty big topic,
it's
right?
so funny because my whole life I've heard, oh, you need to put a boundary up, right? Oh, you need to put a boundary up. Well, I don't know if I even understood what that meant.
Sure.
Even when spirit guides and angels are like, boundaries would be good here, right? They're so like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And do I tell the person that I'm putting a boundary up? Do I not tell the person? And I also feel like once that boundary's up, you break cycles.
Sure. Yeah.
So it kind of goes hand in hand, having the boundary put up. And it can be personal, right?
Oh,
too.
I think it's really personal.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So let's start, because I feel like for me, there's lots of different ways to set a boundary, right? Like you said, you can verbalize it or not verbalize it, right? It can be that. So what are your thoughts on that? Like,
my best way to kind of explain things is from my experiences. So this last summer, it was very interesting, and as I evolve as a human, we just kind of learn to embrace stuff, and then that's when we kind of figure out what that means and what we need to do with it. So this last summer, I needed to put a boundary up with a person, and the boundary that I put up was, man, for years I've been trying to make something that it's not.
okay.
And I was always going out of my way and challenging myself to have this relationship and have this person right there understanding me, constantly trying to kind of get approval. Even it was weird. When I look back on it, it wasn't weird, but when I realized it, it clicked. And I looked at my husband and I just said, you know what? I'm going to put a boundary up. And this boundary to me meant love for myself. And so I could move forward without feeling guilt, exhaustion, a little bit of shame about myself. Like, why is this person not understanding me?
Yeah.
Why is this not happening the way that I wanted it to be?
Sure.
And my angels and guides just kind of sat there and went, yep, let's do this. And it was quiet. I just looked at Chase and said it, and that was it. I didn't tell that person. And I'm going to tell you what, within minutes of me kind of smiling within myself and being proud at that spot that I was at, because it meant love. It meant love for myself and this other person. Like, we don't need to do this, right? We don't need to make something that it's not.
Right.
And I put that boundary up, and it seriously was this release of energy to that toxic part of our lives that we're constantly trying to have someone figure out or get that connection in, or even feel bad for not connecting the way that our mind thought we were supposed to. So I put the boundary up, felt good. I felt like, this is okay. I don't have to do this anymore. And my guides and angels would tell me, you don't have to. So every time it would come up, because remember, this was this summer, my guides and angels would just be like, do we need to reevaluate this?
Yeah.
Do you want to put that boundary back down? What do you want to do? And I'm like, nope, let's just keep going. This feels okay. I have love for that person, so much love for that person. And I figured out that I loved that person even more by releasing that kind of yucky energy with it. So just a couple days ago, we needed to reevaluate that boundary again. And I laugh because I'm like, my guides and angels this year are let's see if we're breaking this. Yeah. So I put a boundary up, right? I would talk to Chase about it. I think I talked to you about it a little bit. Nothing big though, just kind of wanting to get it out there that, I've done this and it feels good. Well, boundary was tested to see if I built that sucker with some good bricks and mortar, right? Yeah. And it was. Yeah. And something happened, and it wasn't invited in. I didn't invite that in for it to happen. It had nothing to do with me, really, but it was really trying to be like, hey, you kind of owe me this, or I don't feel comfortable with what you're doing or how you're acting or pretty much the way I was living. And instead of reacting to that person in the situation, which really nothing changed, it wasn't like we had more contact with each other, it wasn't anything. I sat there and I thought, this really has nothing to do with me. I sat with my guides and angels and I said, okay, normally I would get on the phone and I would freak the freak out. No, I didn't. Because I had that boundary in place, and because every time it kind of came up, I got to evaluate it. This time that it came up, I went, nope. I have love for that person. I have love for myself. I'm not going to call the person up and freak out like I normally would. So that also broke a cycle. So I was so proud of myself. I feel good. I feel really good because I know if I would have dropped that boundary and contacted that person and freaked out and done what I normally react to in a situation like this, it would have felt yucky. Yeah. I stopped it. Yeah. I am me. I am proud of who I am. I've worked very hard, and I'm not gonna go back to that yucky spot. So it was huge. That's my boundary.
That's good.
It was tested.
That's good.
Yeah.
So the word boundary is an interesting thing for me because I feel like a lot of times, and I love the way that you set it up, because when we respond, and we've talked about this on other episodes, when we respond out of love instead out of fear, there's a whole different energy around it, right?
I feel good.
So good. Except that most of the time when I hear people talking about that they need to set a boundary, there's a lot of like
anger
around it, right? Like, let me make sure that this person knows.
And they gotta know
energetically or otherwise, right? And so I struggle with that because I feel like the energetic boundaries that we set or that we need to set with people or with ourselves, they should not feel yucky.
No.
It should feel, now it might be uncomfortable, right? That's growth. That's
right.
Where
it felt uncomfortable.
Right.
I was sitting in my shit a little bit going, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right? It did feel uncomfortable and it hurt my feelings a little bit, but I sat with that too and worked through it.
Yeah. And the other thing to know is about boundaries, right, is that when people are stepping into our space, right, whatever that space is that we've created, and they're sort of, I don't want to say making us feel uncomfortable, because the reaction we have exists in us is that you did something totally different than what you would normally do. Right. So you were in control of the way that you responded to that, and that's the thing that I think we get caught up in sometimes, is that, well, I just respond. I don't think about it, right? That's just who I am. That's how it hurt my feelings, so I'm doing this. We have more control over that than we give ourselves credit for, but it takes a lot of awareness
and processing
to pause and kind of reflect on that, right?
So when you say the awareness part and to pause, it took me an evening, right? Instead of reacting, I connected, I reached out a little bit, like I've been doing, and I really was like, you know what, if this happens, it's going to cause some shit, right? I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I had to sit in it. Yeah. And it just kept going back to that boundary that I put up. Yeah. But you got to give yourself a minute.
Yeah.
Don't just react.
Yeah, absolutely. So the energetic space. So I think a couple of things for me that are really important when we talk about this is, like, number one, really take a step back from it. Like, stop personalizing it. And most of the times when it's, especially when it's like with people that are super close to us, our kids or our significant other or our family or our significant other's family or you know, all kinds of those things come up. Take a step back from it for a moment and also recognize, give them the benefit of the doubt in that they're doing the best that they can with what they've got, right? They may not be as evolved as we are. They may not be as enlightened as we are. They are doing the best that they can with what they've got. They don't realize that they're hurting our feelings, right? Or that they're doing whatever. They're just navigating their space the way that we navigate our space sometimes. And like, I've been in a place where I know I have violated certain people's boundaries. I didn't know that I knew I was doing that until after the fact, right? So we all do that. So if we can give them the benefit of the doubt, number one. Number two, recognize, like, what is it that's going on? And I always say, like, there's a difference between participating in a situation and being an observer. And a lot of times I feel like boundaries, or this idea of setting an energetic boundary, is just the difference between me participating in this situation or observing this situation, because that's exactly what you did, right? Like, you're observing the situation now and not plugging into it and participating in it like you would have once done.
My angels and guides said just pause. Pause. Yeah. Pause. And I was like, oh man, okay, right. Walk me through this. And so that's brilliant. I love that.
And I think that the other like misconception that I like to talk to people about when it comes to boundary is that a lot of times boundaries are set, again, out of fear, but out of like protecting ourselves, right? Like, so, I have to protect myself from this.
I had a very wise friend of mine that said, I was walking him through some stuff that was happening with him. And I said, bud, you got to put up a boundary. And he paused for a second and he goes, we both know, and he's very enlightened. And he goes, we both know boundaries mean love. And it right? It was one of those like that, like, wow, it does. Like, love for ourselves. Remember, we have to love ourselves first. We're taught our whole lives that that's selfish, but really, we have to have love for ourselves, and then that goes over. So instead of reacting, right, and I put that boundary up, had love, paused, and instead of reacting out of my fear and hurt and shame and guilt a little bit too, I handled it with love, because if I would have called that person, it would have made it so yucky. And honestly, Emily, aren't you sick of fighting? That's too. I'm like, another wise person said to me, quit fighting. Yeah. It was this young lady right here, by the way. She's like, you don't have to fight anymore. Which that felt good.
I think it's like, so I replace the word boundary a lot when I'm talking to people with honor. Right? Or fight with honor, because it really is not about that we have to, like, we can't control anything that anybody else does. And that's the other thing about boundaries that I think is really important. Do not set a boundary. This is not a boundary, by the way. Don't do this to me anymore. That is not a boundary. No. Because you can't control that. You cannot make them not do whatever it is that they're doing.
They're going to do what they want.
You can only decide what it is that you are going to do from the situation. So if you do this, then I'm going to do that, right? Like,
that's
an expectation.
A boundary. I'm sorry. So really quick, Emily, because you're brilliant at this, say that again. Boundaries.
So a boundary is not telling somebody what they're going to do or not do. You don't have any control over that at all. None, right? A boundary is about what I'm going to do, right? Yes. And I think it gets mixed up sometimes. And that's exactly what you just said, right? Like, I didn't tell them anything. I just did what I was going to do. And it was different than what I had done before, right?
And I'm not participating to do that because I love myself.
And it was honoring you and what you needed. And sometimes when we honor ourselves, a lot of times when we honor ourselves, we will betray other people, right? And that's a hard thing for us to get when we've been in this society of, like, what you just said a few minutes ago about, like, don't be selfish. So I don't like calling it selfish. I like calling it self-centered. It's the centering of self, right? Like, be self-centered. You've got to take care of you, because that's the only thing that you can control, right? You can't control any of those other things for the most part.
Okay, real quick, can we jump to boundaries with children?
Yeah.
Brilliant on boundaries with children. Many times I've had to call Emily and be like, okay, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah.
What am I doing here?
Yeah.
Right?
So I think that's so much of like, it's really tough, and there's this fine line that we're becoming a really, like, we're in this shift of being more enlightened as parents.
Right.
Because I feel like for a long time, and it was funny, I had a conversation with this about a gentleman who was probably in his 70s, and he grew up in this environment where it was about physical control, right?
Yeah.
He was physically controlled, and then he really, like, that was his parenting style, is I'm going to be able to physically control you.
Right.
Except for that at some point, our children get to the point where I can't physically control you anymore.
No, they're going
right?
to come
like,
at you.
They, like,
They're
it,
gonna
it
come.
is not, and like, it's not always about, like, physical abuse. That's not, the physical control,
Right.
though, is, like, when we think we can do X, Y, and Z. And isn't it, I feel like it's, I want a willing, cooperative component, right, in my child, rather than to force them to do something because I said so, or because I can and I'm bigger than you at this point, right? And even sometimes it's difficult when they're bigger than us. They still, or when we're bigger than them, there's certain things that we cannot control in them. So I think that we're coming into this knowledge in this space where we can start to think about, how could I get my child to be a willing, cooperative component in what it is that I need them to do?
Bribery. You
Well,
bribe them. You make deals with them.
It does work sometimes, like that. But how can we get them to understand? And I had this really, so I forgot to tell you this. I woke up the other morning. I have this friend who's very, very close to me, and he has this really lovely relationship with his daughter. And I woke up with this, like, vision of, like, oh my God, I have to tell him this message that I got. And the message was that his daughter is 13, and at some point, right, he's going to reach this space where, like, he doesn't know what's best for her anymore.
Right.
Like,
that just gave me goosebumps.
I don't know what's best for my children at some point. Like, we have to know what's best for them, right? Like, because that's our job as a parent. And at the same time, there's this, like, the older that they get, every day they get closer and closer to really, like, they're on their own path and their own journey. Yeah. Right? It's not our journey anymore, right?
We just need to kind of go.
We made them be part of this journey for a long time.
We're the bumpers.
And so the vision that I got for him was that his mom has really, and there's a lot of discord in that relationship, and his mom, and most of the discord comes from that his mom always tells him what is best for him, except for that he's a grown-ass man and he doesn't need her to tell him what's best for him anymore.
Oh man,
right?
we don't just did that to me this morning.
They don't know what's best for us anymore, and they don't know that they don't know that anymore. Because as parents, we think we know what's best for our children, except for that we don't really know what's best for our children. There comes a day when that child, even at 16, 17, 18 years old, right, they know what's best for them, and we don't know anymore. So we have to give them the space to be able to know what's best for them. And so what I said to him was that you have to be willing to give her that space, even though it's scary as hell.
Right.
Because the relationship that we hold with our parents as adults is far more valuable than controlling them as a child, and then still maintaining that, like, I know what's best for you, and now you didn't do what I think is best for you, so now I'm going to stand in judgment of you. Like, that does not work, right?
Emily?
Like, that does not work.
Do you come into families and work with them on coaching and counseling?
Yeah.
She's brilliant, guys. I'm telling you what, Emily has this perspective of a difference that we all need. Because Chase and I many times have had to, and maybe sometimes she just is observing quietly, and then we'll be like, you know what, I see this, and I love that, because that's the only way we can open it, and it is true. So I want close relationships with everybody that I love, my family, my parents, but I'm learning to not react when they try to do stuff like that. But it's all they knew.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So boundaries. Let's do an example of.
So the boundaries with children, right? It does depend on the age, because when they're super young, the level of understanding that they have is limited, right? And by the way, we don't give them enough credit for what they do understand, even as a tiny little human being. However, it can be that we enroll them in what is it that we need them to do? Let's say, for example, we need them to clean their room. That's a pretty common thing, right? So the first thing that you have to decide
is when you helped us
is like, why, right? Like, you have to know, what is the purpose for having a clean room? And the reason that I think it's important is just because we're raising children. So here's another thing, and there's a lot to unpack here, but I really wanna say this because I think it's important. There is this, like, we used to come from this, like, my parents grew up in this world of, like, do it because I said so, right? Not because there's a reason behind it, because I'm the parent and that's why, right? I don't need to give you a damn reason.
Right.
Well, so that was also parallel to that level of parenting was also parallel to the way that our societies lived, in that a lot of, like, people went to work and they didn't have to think, right? They were told what to do and they just did it. Now, we're changing that. We're changing the scope of that. Like, I see in a lot of organizations, we want people who can think for themselves. We're giving them problems that we want them to figure out on their own.
Right.
So our children are growing up in a world where they need to have critical thinking skills. Way back then, they didn't have to have critical thinking skills in order to be successful in a job. You just came to work and you did what you were told to do, right?
Right.
So, and we're no longer raising kids that are like, don't speak until you're spoken to, right? Children should be seen, not heard. Like, those things are going away. So, we want our children to be critical thinkers, so that when they go into environments with their friends or wherever, they know how to solve problems on their own, rather than always looking for us to, for example, or for answers. That's the reason why you have to tell them why it's important to clean their room, right? Now, it can be that this is a value of mine, right? That the room stays clean, or it stays like this. And you live in my house, and I provide these things for you. Oh, shit. Oh, my God, the cat. Okay, well, now we've got to check to see. That's going to be a lovely little, Okay, well. All right.
Is it still going?
I think it's still going.
That's fun. This is organic.
Yes, it is.
And we are going to go with it. Little Estrella is always about it, and she's just lounging and showing her stuff down there. I love it. That's hilarious. Okay.
So you have to explain whatever the boundary is. You need to know why, and if you don't know why, before you can get them to have a reason, more so than just because I said so, right? Have a reason behind it. There needs to be logic. So that's the first thing. The second thing is enroll them in the consequence, right? And have an agreement. So here's the reason that I need you to do this. You don't have to agree to that. You don't have to agree with me that you want your room clean. Right. It's fine that you think that it doesn't have to be. And here's what it is that's going to happen, right? And then what the agreement is, get them to agree on, okay, so you don't have to, there's a difference between you don't have to agree and you're making an agreement with them, right? So at my job, right, or at wherever, we deal with this all the time. Like, I don't like that I have to do these things, and it's a part of my job, right? So same type of thing. I don't like that I have to keep my room clean, and it's a part of living as a cooperative, component in this family, right? When you have your own house, you can do whatever you like with your room, right? And as long as you live in my house, this is the way that it is going to be. So get that understanding laid out, and then what are we going to do if and when the room is not to our satisfaction, right? What is that?
Right.
So maybe it's that I'm going to give you 2 chances or 3 strikes and you're out. Right. I'm going to give you 3 opportunities inside of this window to do that. And then what happens if you don't do it? And I like to set the consequences before this actually happens, right?
Lay it out.
Because then they know what they're dealing with. Okay. So
I'll even ask them sometimes. Give them a choice of, if you don't get it done, what are we gonna do here? I'm very much like that.
Yeah.
With kiddos.
And I like to let them decide, right? What is it that I'll be grounded. Grounding doesn't really work that well. So they don't learn anything from that, right?
Ours is electronics.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
here's the thing.
I just told them the other day, okay, This is the third time I'm coming in here. I'm going to put up a boundary. If I have to come in here again, you guys are all off of electronics tomorrow. You can earn them back, but you will be off of them.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
Great
Absolutely.
boundary.
Yeah,
it was,
absolutely.
It was dropped.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
They just went right through that boundary.
Yeah.
Nobody had electronics.
Yeah. So, and then
one
then
earned
it's
it
great,
back.
Then it's great
Yeah.
to learn that,
Yeah.
right? And we have to be satisfied with that, right? That it's like, okay, so if I'm in this space where I'm resistant and I'm like, screw you, I'm not going to do it. I'm fine to sit here without the thing that I normally want to have and really not do that. Hold it out, right? Wait it out. Don't cave and add more things. Let it just
let
be,
that boundary
right?
sit.
Like, let it be.
Yeah.
After 5 days of not having the electronics, they probably will. The problem is that we get really impatient and we want it done now because we want to control the situation.
Right.
And I'm bigger than you and I said so. So now I'm gonna go ahead and be like, okay, fine. Now you're gonna blah 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 blah, right? So hold it out. Let them work through that and decide. So I like to get the consequences with them. Like I like to let them decide and let them choose. And then the other thing is that really controlling my emotions is really important, because the more like that I yell at my children, or the more that I'm like, the less they hear me. There's so much stuff in that they're not getting it, right?
Do you know
so
what I do?
Calm, yeah.
Sing. I don't yell. Well, I still yell at them sometimes, but I'll sing. I'll be like, Corbin, go get your shoes for the 5th time. It's hilarious.
I love it, and I
And
really
they
do
get
that.
it.
It's so good. Yes, it's so good. So good.
And he'll smile.
Yeah.
Go get his shoes.
Yeah.
And dance to my
Yeah.
song. It's hilarious.
I love it. That's so
And I just
great.
decided to do it.
Yeah.
My guides and angels were like, quit yelling at them.
Yeah.
Stop,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Because really, the one will look at me like, I just crushed his heart and soul. So I'm like, I can't. I have to stop. How do I do this? They're like, you have to stop. Do something else. Put some light in there.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think.
And at some point, like, yelling will not be effective anymore either, right? So if we can start now, when they're young, getting that willing cooperation, it's fine. Or it's better than, like, okay, now this yelling thing, it doesn't work anymore, right? Or it creates then teaching them to yell, and that's how they solve problems, and that doesn't work either,
That
right?
happens.
Like, yeah, absolutely.
We've got a yeller and a bossy one. I don't know where they get that.
So I think those are a few things that you know, like, have worked for me, and I've had to really examine, like, my parenting style, and also just to, like, trust in that the spirituality and bringing that into the parenting has been so valuable for me, because I didn't do it like that for a long time. And my oldest son now, right, he's gonna be 21. I can't even believe it. And we have this amazing relationship, and he made a lot of really bad, like, what we would consider, I don't like to categorize things into good and bad, but in terms of our societal conditioning, he made a lot of really bad choices that he's now having to deal with. And there was a point at which I had to let go of, like, the responsibility of the parent, and, like, and that this is his path and this is his journey, and that it was more important to me to maintain my relationship than it was to, like, tough love him out and make him feel as though, or give him this love with conditions, right? Or this, like, so it's an interesting thing when they get to that space.
You said when you were going through all that stuff with your oldest, you said, listen, buddy, you can come here, you can stay here, this is this, that's that, this is the boundary I'm putting up. I love you, but you can't be here if you're going to do that.
Right.
That's a beautiful example of you're protecting your space and yourself. And it's giving him the opportunity to really kind of reevaluate what he's doing. Without saying, you can't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I had to really give him that, like, this is his space, this is his journey, his life, and, like, as his mom now at this point, like, I don't know what's best for him. And I do feel like it kind of comes in that, like, that tweenish area where they really begin to develop their own sense of self and what is best for them. And the other thing is that if we're always telling them what to do and we don't give them the opportunity to think for themselves, they learn not to trust themselves.
Yeah, and
it creates a lot of challenges.
It's
right?
tough, and it will mess things up bad.
And just because they make mistakes doesn't mean that they still don't know what's best for them, because we, right, make a ton of mistakes all the time.
And it's brought me to a spot.
I still don't, my parents don't know what's best for me, even with the mistakes that I'm making. Like, they're not me. They didn't have my experiences in my life. So can they give me some advice? Can they offer an opinion or something? Yes.
Do I let
that sink in? Yes. And we are the only, you got to check in with yourself. We're the only ones who know what's best for us. And I want my kids to know that, and to know that I support that in them, right? Like, my 13-year-old, I'll ask him sometimes, like, what do you think is best for you in this situation? And I will tell you that he almost always makes the decision that you would think they would take the high road or they would take the easy way out, right? They don't. They know. Intrinsically, as human beings, even if we've never been taught, we somehow have this really interesting, like, right or wrong kind of morality. And sometimes we take the other side just to experience it. Like, wonder what this would be like, right? So it's not really about right and wrong all the time. Like, I don't know about that.
I ever since I was very little, and my whole life, my, mom would be like, oh, don't do that. My family, my friends even, don't do that. And I remember looking at them and saying, this decision's mine and mine only. And I'm going to do it, because then if whatever I'm experiencing in that, I know I can look back and be like, I made that choice. That was a lot of responsibility for my path, for my evolution, everything. Yeah. But in some of those, my mom had to say, well, boundaries up. See ya. Yeah. I'll talk to you later, right? Or whatever. And that was okay.
Yeah. So I think that's the other important thing to realize about boundaries, is that sometimes we set boundaries because we want another person to do something or not do something, and we can't control that, so they still might continue to, when you, and this is another important thing I think that's really interesting when we examine boundaries, is like, let's say that you set this boundary, and like you said, there, it gets challenged, right? We set this boundary up, we're not going to do this thing anymore, we're not going to participate in this thing anymore. Those people sometimes will continue to come at you. And then it might be that you have to verbalize it at that point.
How about that? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Our next one can be, when do you have to say, Emily, I'm putting up a boundary. This is because of this, and this, and this is my boundary. And I love it how people will say, please respect it.
No control over that.
Yeah. So, I've had to put boundaries up before, and they've been tough, and they've always really kind of had to do with love and toxic things that were connected to that space of what I thought love was. And it took me a minute. And usually I have to say that I'm putting up a boundary if it is aggressive. If that person is being aggressive after me just saying, hey, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, can't do that, then it's okay to say, hi, see this nice thick wall? It's mine, and I'm putting it up, and you stay there, I stay here, right? But it's okay to do that too.
Totally. The one thing that I always tell people is, be careful using the word boundary, because what happens a lot of times is it's human nature that people want to resist something that they feel like they're being controlled. And when I use the word boundary with you, it might mean that I'm trying to control your behavior. Now that is exactly what is happening, right? That is exactly what I'm trying to do. So sometimes verbalizing it like that can create even more
fire.
So it could just be that you talk about your own behavior. Same exact result that gets created from that, right? But there's a difference between saying to you, Stacey, I'm putting up a boundary, and it's because you and I have had this experience, or if you say because you did this, and this, they're most of the time not going to be a willing cooperative component, right? Like, they're going to be resistant to that because it's criticism, right? We are saying what you've done is no longer okay with me. And although that's fine, you can totally say that, what happens a lot of times is a lot of resistance and a lot of fire. So instead, it could be that I only talk about me, right? So I could say to you, Stacey, in these experiences, it didn't feel good to me. I don't want to do it like this anymore. So from now on, I'm going to do X.
This.
Right?
So,
and that's no criticism on her.
No.
It's telling her what did not work for me.
You.
And now it's like, the same results
right.
can be created from that, right?
Right.
But I'm not now creating a additional yuckiness that you're now going to fight me with, right? So the message is still the same, but we get a little bit easier of like, we're heading down this path and it's about me, not about you. Even though it was because of something that she did that was not okay
don't
with
discredit that at all. Once again, last year, a year ago right now, I had to put up a firm boundary that had to do with someone feeling like what I do is an abomination. And this was somebody very close to me that has never given me the opportunity to even explain what it is I do. And once again, I was trying to kind of dance around that and trying to get them to figure out that I'm not a horrible demon that lives under beds and sacrifices babies. Which we joke about only from this time to this time on this day. But I had to put up a boundary, and I remember saying to the person, I have to put up this boundary because this is not okay with me. I want to have other conversations with you when I do speak to you. So for now on, I'm every time this is brought up, I'm going to shut it down. And I made it very clear, and I've held that boundary, and it's not, the relationship is not where I want it to be, because now it does kind of feel weird, but I still send pictures, and when we do talk, we just talk about things like this, and I've understood too with love that that's what our relationship is. And so it took a lot of guilt and shame off me for trying to explain, and even kind of going in myself thinking, oh, maybe I do need to look at myself a little bit better, deeper, whatever. No, it had nothing to do with that. It's that if it's like this, and if that person cannot see who I am, I'm not going to exhaust myself anymore. So I broke another cycle.
Here's let's go one more layer deeper under that, because I think that's really important. When somebody does not accept us for who we are, the way we are, we can take it really personally, especially if it's a family member. And I will tell you that most of the time, like we talked about this at the beginning of the episode, it's a fear-based response. And not that they're afraid of you specifically, but there's something about what they believe, right? A belief system that they hold true, and it has nothing to do with you.
No,
right?
Because it's
been like that for this person for years and years and years
they
and
know
years,
me,
right? Yeah.
And I'm not those things at all. But there was no line. There were boundaries kept being crossed that I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And then I really wasn't honoring my own boundaries that I was saying within myself, because that person kept crossing them, and I still felt really yucky every time we had contact and we were talking. It would go to the same spot. So that's when I said out loud, I'm putting a boundary up. This is not working for me. I love to talk to you, but if it does go to this space, I'm letting you know right now that I will get off the phone. I will end that conversation. I love you, but I'm not allowing this anymore.
Absolutely.
And it's been okay.
Yeah.
We haven't had a thing.
Right. Yeah. So you can coexist in the space and allow that person to be the way that they are.
I can, and that's it's apparent that I'm not gonna. Everybody's allowed to believe what they want to believe, and I even said that to this person. I love that you have that. That is just, you're allowed to have that.
Right.
Please do not tell me that I am this, and this, and when you know I am not this, and this. So it was a very important boundary. It does make me sad still that it can't go any further, and and I let him know that. I let that person know, I'm sad that you are this, that this is this consuming for you. It makes me very sad that you are hurting that way and in such fear of me. But that is not my responsibility.
It is so fear-based. And what's interesting, I feel like for me...
I have to use a Kleenex. I've had a cold for over a month. It's almost gone.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
Poor Callie, too. Callie and I.
The other thing that I think is important to talk about in regard to that also is that the fear-based responses, right? And I feel like I'm a very open-minded person. I feel like I accept a lot of people for the way that they are. And
Absolutely.
I will tell you that there is a space that I had got to where I had to look at that because, for example, I've had abortions, right? And there are people who say all kinds of terrible, horrible things.
Me too. I just was on a Facebook thing and I'm like, stop your shit, Stacey, stop it.
And so it's like, it's interesting for me to get to a place where I can go like, I am in a space where I want to be respected and allowed to believe what I believe, right? And those choices, I'm not one of those people, by the way, who every time that comes around each year that I'm wrecked and broken and sad. Like that is not my experience. And it doesn't mean that I'm heartless, and it doesn't mean, but there are people out there who believe that it's terrible and that it's all of these things, right? I want to be respected for the things that I believe and my experiences that I've had. And so even though they can't give that to me because they're not in that space, if I really am going to preach that and I want that, I then also have to respect the fact that that's where they are with they want to be respected and the fact that they have those belief systems, right? That's a really hard place to get to.
We're dealing with that right now. We are in a retrograde.
Oh, yeah.
And my poor husband is struggling with some things. But we sit in it, right? We now just sit and talk about it. And know that will shift and change. But yeah, it's hard. So I have to say, for the most part, my boundaries are with family.
Yeah.
In every area. So listen, just because they're your family does not mean that they are going to totally embrace who you are completely and understand you. That's okay. We have to quit. And a boundary would be responding and getting so defensive. I have to work on that.
It's work. It is work, right? Like I think that, and I think you're absolutely right. Most of the time, the ones that are most challenging for us are the ones with our family, right? And the people that are really close to us. And it is such an opportunity. Like I had an experience recently where it was with my mom and my sister, and I was sitting eating dinner with them, and most of the time I don't feel like I talk about people, but at the same time, like, they probably won't watch this all the way through, and if you are watching this all the way through, I love you so much, and both of you, I would say this to your face, they really were really negative, and they were complaining about a lot of things in their life, and there was a part of me that I wanted to say something, and I will tell you, a couple of years ago, I would have, like, kind of, guys, like, come on, stop bitching about these things, right? Like, I would have said, stop being negative Nancy's about it, like, can we talk about something positive? And I will tell you, I had to 3 times remind myself, like, it's okay for them to be where they are. And, and the work for me in this space is to sit here and to love them exactly where they are, for who they are, in what they are. And that sometimes I can be negative too. And so, like, give them the freedom to do what they're doing, and that it wasn't the time for me to, like, be the coach or to remind them of their, like, you know, what they were doing.
So let's say here we have this product now that we're going to try to use. And it's all about enlightenment, right? Like an awareness. So we'll end the note on that. Here we have this awareness. Now, if you stumble, that's okay too.
Oh, you're going to. You don't have the expectation that you're not.
Right. Just go with it. Yeah. Everybody have some compassion and patience for yourself, because it's all about learning. That's what we're doing here. And we're all learning in our different levels of things. Like, I'm going back on my last couple weeks thinking, woo! Yeah. That was a lot. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so if you do something that's out of that, or you drop a boundary or whatever, it's all right. Yeah. Just get back up and keep going. Yeah, Guides and angels are right there. And another thing too, everybody should know this, guides and angels are not judgmental at all. Right. They never hold any judgment of what we are doing. They are only there for support. Yeah. So let's say you don't have somebody to reach out to like this. Sit. Take some deep breaths. Ask yourself. They're right there. Angels are healers, right? Spirit guides, angels, whatever, people like to mix them. My guides are helping me with this earthbound stuff, and my angels are really helping me heal at the same time. So they're there.
Yeah.
Sometimes my guides laugh at me. Sometimes my angels are like, ow, owie, owie. All right, let's get in there, do our work, right? It's great. So just know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Call on them for support. Call
all
on
the
us for
time.
support.
Yeah, let us know. And another thing too, I know that this is going to be on Monday. We're in a retrograde. Mercury is retrograde till March 10th. So everybody should know that's communication. It's relationship stuff. If you're struggling with it, because some signs struggle with it more, I think it's the water signs right now that are really struggling with it. I'm trying to think what Chase is. Air. He's air. Yeah. So air and water signs are struggling with this. Please be patient with yourself. It's a time for us to reflect in, right? To look at these things that may need to change. And it usually has a lot to do with relationships. So be kind to yourself.
Yeah. And if you have questions about setting boundaries, just like post them in the comments.
Right. We would love answer them. Please comment, post. We would love that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Have a great day, guys. See you later. Bye.